on Al Jazeera. You got to have an answer. It's like somebody who walks into a big moment of their life without having done the homework. And so I still think he'll be confirmed on more or less party line votes. But if it was up to sort of looking for a boost of sign of competence, this was not it.
How'd you see it?
I disagree. I thought he was compelling, convincing, electrifying. No, he did not help himself. He did struggle. He did not appear to be prepared for the questions. I mean, for the intensity and hostility, specifically of the questions, especially from his former Republican colleagues, beginning with John McCain, who apparently is convinced at this point in his life that the most seminal event in U.S. history was not the Constitutional Convention, Concord or Lexington, or Appomattox. It was the surge. And where you stood on the surge
in Iraq,
that determines whether, in fact, you are a visionary or a retrograde. But it was a lousy performance by Chuck Hagel. He'd obviously decided he wasn't going to get confrontational. When Ted Cruz, the junior senator from Texas, basically accused him of dishonesty, raised questions about his honoraria and what he did. I mean, the idea that Chuck Hagel, that David and I know, didn't say, wait a minute, you know, and he did it at the last question. I'm out of time now, but let me ask you about this and your speeches and what you got and when you reported and didn't report. I mean, at that point, Chuck Hagel says, let me tell you, you know, you've just raised the question. I don't care about time being out. This is my time to tell you, you know, that you're absolutely wrong, and you know, that was just missing completely.
So there's some reporting that Hagel, this was a deliberate strategy on Hagel's part, not to be confrontational. But you're saying if that's what it was, it didn't work.
The senators were awful. I mean, let's just get one thing straight. We just had the highest suicide rate in the history of the U.S. military recorded. We had to get one senator, Joe Donnelly, most junior member from Indiana, before anybody even asked about suicides. Nobody asked about the troops. Nobody asked about military families. I mean, and, you know, Israel is important. It's crucial. Iran is important. 117 times Israel was mentioned by questioners, and yet I didn't hear anything about widows and orphans and what we're going to do about returning veterans without jobs and post-trauma.
I think that's fair, but the surge was a major event in recent defense history. The Secretary should have a view on that. If you go in a confirmation process, you're going to be asked about the embarrassing or stupid things you said. You should have a view. You should certainly be able to express the administration's position on Iran correctly, which he did not do. He didn't do the containment thing.
That was terrible.
He got that wrong. Now, I agree the questions... well, his job is to administer the Defense Department in a time of defense cuts. And so if you're interested in the competence, I agree. They should have been asking about that. Yeah. But the doubt would be, if he can't be the tough guy here, well, it's going to require a tough guy to cut the Defense Department intelligently. You're going to have to stand up to a lot of very vested interests, and we just have to know he can do that.
Well, that clip they played on Hillary Clinton, addressing her critics before the Foreign Relations Committee, was missing. And the senators, time and time again, even if they ask these cosmic questions about the globe, would come back to, well, what about my base? You know, let's get down to the really important things. Back home, you know, you're going to keep my base.
Now, David just said he thinks he'll still be confirmed. Do you have a thought on that?
I do. I mean, I do think he'll be confirmed. In the first vote will be in the committee. It's 14-12. I think right now Roy Blunt, the Republican, announced against him today. That was a possibility. So it looks more and more like a party line vote.
So the other attention that got a lot of attention this week was the other hearing that got a lot of it was on gun violence. Very poignant testimony from Gabrielle Giffords, the former Congresswoman, and then the NRA represented by some pretty remarkable pushback from Wayne LaPierre and some other folks. Does this change? I mean, where are we in the debate over what's going to happen about guns? I mean, has it moved, David?
Well, in terms of the theater of the hearings, Giffords and the people who want more gun control certainly dominated. I still think the NRA is weirdly inept. I assume they know what they're doing. This is their business, but they're not projecting it, at least to me. And having said that, though, my sense is, and it's just a vague atmospheric sense, that a lot of the oomph has gone out of the president's initiative, what Biden is doing. He's up there working hard. But it's very hard for members of Congress to vote when their phones are being flooded. And the people who really vote on this issue are on the gun rights side. And so I sense a little dissipation in the passion, and it's still possible we'll get some reforms on on the background checks and things like that. But one senses, like immigration, you see a move, you see real movement toward a possible law. I don't see that same sort of bipartisan or even partisan in a few movement on the gun stuff.
You see it petering out?
No, I don't. I think that I think there is emerging consensus on the universal background check, and it's something that the NRA did support in the past and is now opposing. I mean, the NRA strategy is something else. I mean, when they get David Keene, who's been on our program, as the president is sort of avuncular and reasoned, and then they go with Wayne LaPierre, who is bombastic and strident, and following Gabby Gifford, and especially Mark Kelly, her husband, who said that, in fact, if there were a background, that Gabby Gifford would not have been testifying that day. I think there's a good chance on high-capacity magazines. I mean, when you've got military-style assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, they're intended for one purpose, and that's to inflict as much damage on human beings in as short a time as possible. That's what they are there for. I thought the president showed some presence when he talked about people growing up with rifles. A 10-year-old receiving a rifle from his father. That there's not the demonizing of the other side, of people who have firearms and is part of their family and tradition. I thought that showed a certain maturity, and I hope a political awareness.
We know the president's going to keep talking about this. He's due to go to, I guess, Minnesota on Monday to talk about the gun issue again. David, you mentioned immigration. You had the bipartisan group of senators come out this week with a plan, and the next day the president rolled out his plan. So you do see some movement there. Yeah,
I do. The Republicans clearly want to move more than they have. The right-wing talk radio is more divided than it's been. I think the evidence is all points in the right direction. And I think, we've got very little good economic news coming. If we're going to boost the economy, create some dynamism in the economy, increasing the number of high school immigrants in particular is pretty much the only lever we got these days. So there's a strong economic argument. My only fear is we get distracted by sort of secondary and tertiary issues, like what kind of fence is built and what triggers to what. And so far the debate is being shifted off to those other issues and missing the main benefit of an immigration reform bill, which is the dignity of the people who are here, but also the economic growth we'd get out of it.
David, it makes a good case. The reality is that the Republicans have twice had Mitt Romney as a potential nominee. They chose him in 2008, 2012. In 2008 and 2012, he had been the most get tough on illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, illegals as he called them. Accused John McCain of wanting to give them Social Security check. Accused Mike Huckabee of selling out to them with the DREAM Act in Arkansas. I mean, it was really the most strident, and we saw what happened. It's not simply, Judy, Hispanics. The country will be 9% Asian in 2050. The electorate will be. That is a group of voters who have felt even more alienated from Republicans. So you've got the Republicans are looking at a country that is going to be a majority-minority country in just over a generation. And they are an increasingly white party.
And you're saying that's an incentive for them
John McCain has been candid about it. He said, my own state, the demographics of my own state are changing. Arizona will be a Democratic state. Jeb Bush has predicted that by 2030, Texas will be a blue state, unless the Republicans act on this. He's one of the few people who has sounded this alarm in his party.
So
the Republicans are actually pretty smart about this. They say immigration is a threshold issue. It's not enough to get the Latino vote, but you got to get over that threshold to even get a hearing.
It's not the silver bullet. But if Mitt Romney had got the percentage Ronald Reagan did of Hispanics, he would have defeated Barack Obama.
Well, speaking of thresholds, the Super Bowl, Sunday night. I'm going to put you both on the spot. Call the score. Who's going to win?
The score will be
Which
2-0. And that's baseball, isn't it? John Harbaugh the
Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens coach, the kid who wasn't the starting quarterback, wasn't the golden boy, and the Baltimore, San Francisco's beautiful. It's a wonderful city. Tony Bennett sings a great song. Herb Caen called it Baghdad in the Bay. It's a romantic. Baltimore, Charm City, will win 24-21.
Putting his faith on Joe Flacco. Good luck with that. Listen, San Francisco's better defense. We have much higher ratings in San Francisco than in Baltimore. San Francisco, the 49ers are going to win 42-17.
Better defense than Chuck Hagel.
Not that we care about ratings.
Let me get this down.
42-17.
24-21.
Got it.
And the commercials.
And we're holding both of you to account.
All right.
Mark Shields, David Brooks.